It wasn't like them. It is now 5:04, and I'm calling the meeting of the Bartlett Regional Hospital Board of Directors to order. Welcome, everybody. And acknowledgement, just walked out the door.
Do it.
Grilled cheese to Quiget, Haida, and Xinjiang people. We respectfully acknowledge them as the original inhabitants of Southeast Alaska. Our regional hospital is located in the homelands of the Aquaman. They're grateful to provide services in your ancestral homeland and be part of this community.
Thank you. And then call roll, please.
Yeah. Dr. Fernandez. Jeannie Monk. Here. Chris Letterman.
Here.
Dr. King is absent tonight. Oh, thank you, Dr. Fernandez. Next words.
Here.
Lisa Peterson.
I'm here.
Al Geiger. Yes. And Deb Johnston. Okay, and we also have Jerry. Yeah.
Okay, so welcome, everybody. It's time to approve the agenda, but I would like to make a slight amendment to the agenda. On the committee meeting updates, we have 2 action items for the governance committee that I would like to table to the next meeting. And I'll be talking a little bit about this later. Joe and I, when we were at the AHA Rural Health Conference, attended an intensive, a governance intensive directed to CEOs and board chairs, and we got a lot of good information, and we'd like to use that to, as we are looking to put together our committee charters, charter template. So give us a little bit so we can.
Madam Chair, I would ask that we table it till the April meeting, because our next governance committee meeting is scheduled to be April 7th.
Thank you for that. Okay, that being said, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second,
I'll look at that.
thank you,
I
Hal.
have a question about it. Can we do an action item on a consent agenda, 6E? Don't we have to pull that out and do that separately? So the robotic, we've got an action item in there we have to approve. So can we approve that through the consent agenda?
I think I agree that we should probably pull it out. How do
We,
I mean, I don't-
your policies on there. You can certainly pull it off if you have discussion. If you,
we have had policies on the consent agenda.
yeah, for the med staff, because they've been approved by the med staff and the med staff exec. Yes. So if there's something you have a question on, you can pull it off. And
It doesn't happen.
Questions on it?
It doesn't happen. Like now that you.
Just want to make sure the attorney's.
Is there any objection to approving the agenda as amended? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Do we have any public participation? It looks like we do. Come on up.
I have to sit there.
We would like you to. That way you can see us all. We can see you. We do have, we do have a 5-minute limit, somewhat like the assembly, but
He speaks longer than 2 is 2.
Yeah.
So, Deborah, members of the board, staff, thanks for allowing me to participate. My name is Bruce Wyrock. I'm the president of the Foundation for End of Life Care. And I handed Anita some papers to hand out, and I just wanted the board to know testimony I gave at the assembly meeting last month or earlier this month about the hospice and the foundation. And I expressed thanks to the assembly for appropriating funds to the hospital when it assumed hospice, and it gave a strong vote of support for the hospital to take when the hospital assumed hospice from Catholic Community Services. I also reiterated the importance of hospice to the Juneau community in Southeast Alaska in general. And I just wanted you to have a copy of this so you knew what was said. The other things I wanted to mention to the board tonight was that I wanted to follow up on Dr. Ira Byack, who came and spoke to some members of the board and some staff on December 9th. And then Dr. Byack spoke to the public on December 10 at Centennial Hall. Unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of board members at the public presentation nor department staff. And I would like to get some follow-up from the board and staff who heard Dr. Byack present to you all here in this room about whether it was helpful or not. Because our mission is to help support hospice, and we want to do that by providing educational opportunities. And if it wasn't helpful, we would like to know that. If something else would be more helpful, we'd like to know that. So if I could reserve somebody's ear for some time to get some feedback on that, I'd like to work with Hal Geiger on maybe getting some feedback on whether that was useful, because we want to plan for the future by those opportunities. The other thing is that we have met with hospice, and we appreciate the opportunity to meet with Heather Richter on an ongoing basis as often as possible. We get lots of positive feedback from her and uplifting approaches to things. We also get lots of information about hospice. And we know that staffing of hospice is the biggest problem. And it's very difficult because Aaron's coming in, a new director, and he can't stay here past May because his housing costs are going up $3,000 a month. And that's just untenable for a staff member at Bartlett. You can't afford to pay. And that's a structural problem that seems to be citywide. I'm not sure how to solve that, but we as a foundation can provide education of physicians. You have earlier hospice referrals is critically important for hospice. Education of the public to understand that hospice is a benefit and understand that hospice can prolong life and end of life and is good quality care. And many of you have had people in hospice understand that, but the general public does not. And many physicians do not understand the benefits of hospice and early referrals. So we want to be a very strong educational advocate for hospice in this community and work with Bartlett very carefully to do that, and particularly hospice and Heather and her successors. So that's my guess.
Thank you, Gary. And Al, I'm sure will reach out to us. And
Well, I'd like to
connect
get some
us-
feedback.
Connect
Dr.
us
Byack.
to get feedback.
Yeah, great.
I've been here.
Yeah, and Anita, if you could make this available to the folks online, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Is he planning on coming back, or is he? I was actually not able to attend, and I wanted to, but I went down south for a funeral. So that's why I wasn't there.
Excuse the absence.
But yeah, I would have loved to have heard it.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else?
Actually, I had a question for viewers, if we're not in a rush. So that, I don't know if you've seen the latest financials. We've been dealing with Bob Bartholomew primarily, and the commitment to hospice and home care is very strong by the board, and management as well, which is good. We're losing money though. And we had hoped that there might be some funding that could come in from either end of life or from Community Foundation. Do you know the stats?
Here's I knew enough to be dangerous. So the Foundation for End of Life Care has a budget that is unpredictable because we rely on donations and charitable gaming for income. So we can't make commitments on future funding for anything. All we can do is see what we get and then try and spend that. And we're legally obligated to spend what we get for charitable gaming on a yearly basis. And that's why we had a big outlay for Dr. Byack at the end of last year. As far as what we can do is, because one of the biggest needs of hospice is education, we believe it's most important to put our eggs into the educational basket to help supplement whatever kinds of other activities and monies that hospice can get through the hospital grant process. I do know, in talking with Bob Bartholomew, that the Juneau Community Foundation has tens of millions of dollars. And we are a small foundation. Right now, we have roughly a budget of $50,000. And so comparatively, we can't do much in terms of money, direct cash money to through Noel and the grant writer and stuff. And so financially, we can't do that kind of thing to help Bartlett, but we can help the educational component. And that, getting people into hospice sooner helps make money, gets people out of the hospital, frees up hospital beds, and that cuts down the cost of the hospital. And by the way, the last time I was here, when I talked with the board, you recommended that somebody from the hospital be on our board, and we're very grateful to have Angela Davis on our board.
Yeah.
And she provides lots of information. And I do know that in my discussions with some members associated with the Juneau Community Foundation, that the grant writing for the Juneau Community Foundation to ask for money, there was some suggestion to ask for a placeholder of $50,000 or $60,000. I think you should ask for 4 times that, because if you get
I
rejected,
like your thinking.
at least 4 times that,
Yeah.
they've got the money.
Yeah.
They've got tens of millions of dollars. And hospice is a community priority. And we're going to follow up with Aaron Harden on the polling that's been done to prove that. Because I know they spend a lot of money on the homeless, and that's a big problem in the community. But hospice is wanted by this community, and that assembly unanimously supports that. If they reflect the community, they reflect that demand for money. And I think Juneau Community Foundation should pony up. And I think you should be aggressive in your grant request. So I don't want to pass the rest and let them pay, but we will do our part to educate. That's where we're best. That's where we work best. And you do that closely with hospice to make sure we're doing what they want.
So so who's on the board now, Bruce, besides you and I?
So that paper I passed out.
Is it?
Oh, it's on the bottom.
Bobby Rod,
Oh, that's all right there, though.
yeah, well, Bobby Rod, Angela Davis, Jeff Short, Murray Butner, who, by the way, is going to become the new hospice director, take over Taylor Dunn's position as a hospice medical director. We're grateful to have Murray. Kristen Jones, who's a counselor with JAMI. Laura Kelly, retired civil engineer. Janet Hampton, she's an accountant at Surge. Sean O'Sullivan, grant writer at Surge. Carrie Pusich Carrie Pusich's mother was Sue Douglas, and she's started this foundation.
Right.
Roman Montica, he's a hospice volunteer, and Julie Staley, who was married to Dale Staley, who's in hospice at the vice principal at ADHS. And Julie's a bright, I love her Australian accent. So very bright, energetic, engaged person, and hopefully the next president.
Great. You've got to I mean, Kristen's young, you've got some younger folks on the board too. That's great.
Kristen Jones is less than 40, and any nonprofit in Juneau.
Former swimmer, and I know her well, and it's great to see her doing.
Well, I mean, Kristen, the reason I asked her to be on the board is she lost 2 brothers to previous ataxia.
Yes.
I mean, profound grief and understanding grief and educating about grief is a fundamental component of end of life. And
Yeah.
so Kristen's a great voice.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
So and I always appreciate coming here because I know you're always warmly receiving me.
Thank you. Any
And
other
so-
questions?
So what you're doing.
So Al will call me and we can brainstorm.
We'll work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you again. The consent agenda. I would, if there's no amendments to the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Who did first?
Second that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Big news.
Hey, Nate.
Let's, uh, uh, employee satisfaction survey results.
So I just want to thank both Megan and Tracy from Fresh Gaining to be here. As we've seen the last couple of years, we have folks, the experts come from Fresh Gaining to present the results to you. And so I'm not going to belabor the point. This is the third year of doing this. So I'm really excited to share some what I think is some pretty good news, which is we're seeing some pretty significant increases in some areas. And they're going to walk through both the pros and some of the cons. And so I'm turning the time over to them. Then after that, we're going to talk about a couple of A3s that we have the frameworks built so staff can really dig into the making the process improvements this year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Megan and Tracy to introduce themselves and kick us off.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead. Do you want me to kick us off, Megan, and then you can?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Wilson. I'm the managing account director that works with Bartlett. I actually cover or oversee the entire partnership. So right now you have solutions across safety, engagement, and patient experience. And so I'm here as your strategic business partner to help understand your goals, your challenges, and to make recommendations from there. And I'll let Megan introduce herself. She'll be running most of the presentation today, but I'm here to help with questions and comments that come up as necessary. So.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. And thank you all for your time this evening. My name is Megan Yunkin. You may notice that doesn't match the name on our title slide. I'm presenting on behalf of Miranda today, who is your primary workforce engagement advisor. I am a colleague of hers, so most questions that you might have regarding the data, regarding national trends, I will be able to answer. And there may be some questions that I need to take back to her. Feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have questions as we're going through here, but let's go ahead and get started. On our next slide, before we get into the data, we always like to acknowledge the impact that employee engagement and the employee experience, people having a positive, strong, good experience when they come to work every day within healthcare, the impact that has on the overall patient experience. When we have employees who are engaged and who are satisfied with the work they're doing and feel like it is meaningful work and important work, it really trickles down into all aspects of healthcare, especially the patient experience, having a safe, high quality experience. So it's always good to remember why we are looking at this information as we go through it. So if we go to the next slide, we will dive right into some of our actual data for this year. This is very high level. We'll get into a little bit more detail on the next slides, but on this slide, we're looking at overall high level, the fact that we collected this feedback in October, November. We have an overall engagement score on the left-hand side within that donut chart of 3.92 out of 5. That's the score that we get when we take the aggregate of the responses to all of our engagement specific questions. They're all asked on a 5-point scale. So the overall aggregate score that we have is a 3.92 out of 5 for Bartlett Regional. That is an increase from last year's engagement score. As you can see below that donut, it is an increase of 0.07 from the 2024 survey. There was also an increase from 23 to 24. So we're moving in the right direction consistently year over year, which is exactly what we want to see. To just next to that donut, we see what that means as far as how engaged or disengaged are the population. You can see that most of our population is either engaged or highly engaged within the organization and their position. We have 25% of the population who are neutral, and I think that that's that's a really great opportunity. These are the folks that we have the best chance of moving from this kind of neutral, sitting on the fence feeling into engagement by the actions that you take, by the things that we do to kind of promote additional improvements in employee engagement. So really good opportunity here within that neutral group. And then 7% of the population disengaged. That's pretty close to what we're used to seeing nationally. We are used to seeing about 8% of folks being disengaged within any healthcare population. So like I said, an increase from last year to this year. That puts us, when we compare externally to the national healthcare benchmark, which is over 1.4 million responses, that puts us in the 39th percentile ranking. So we're outperforming 39% of the national benchmark, whereas last year we were in the 27th percentile. So increasing overall score, increasing overall percentile rank. And then we had a response rate of 53%. And that is also an increase from last year's response rate. So lots of things moving in a really nice direction from a very high level. And then if we look at the right-hand side of this slide, some of the overall strengths that we see from the data, really good improvement in the overall engagement for new hires. So for folks who have been with the organization for less than 1 year, their engagement scores this year are higher, significantly higher than they were last year. So anything that's being done to focus on the onboarding experience and that new hire experience is really showing positive impact in these scores. We've got really strong scores, strong percentile ranks compared to the national benchmark when it comes to satisfaction with benefits. The 75th percentile, you're outperforming 75% of the national benchmark when it comes to satisfaction with benefits. And also with satisfaction with financial security. So people feel like they have what they need to be financially secure, and satisfaction with their benefits. There's also been a significant increase in confidence in senior management's leadership. That item, out of all of the survey items, had the most amount of increase from 2024 to 2025. And that one is an item that is really a strong driver of engagement for a lot of organizations. So to see a positive movement in that area shows that there is some trust in the direction that the organization is going. So that is great. Every organization has their opportunities for improvement when it comes to this engagement data. And one of the big opportunities that we have here is around safety, and how perceptions of safety are influencing and impacting workforce engagement. So specifically around a culture and an environment of patient safety, and around that comfort and psychological safety around reporting of safety issues. So those are some things that we will look closer into when it comes to what's driving engagement. And then we also will want to take a look at the fact that there's been a little bit of a decline in the leader index. So our leader index are items that we ask on the survey to look at the relationship between managers and their direct reports. Is there good communication? Is there good feedback? Things like that. So there's been a little bit of a decrease in those scores around that, those items measuring the relationship of employees and their direct manager. So we will take a look at that as we go through. All right, on our next slide, we will see what are the items that we use to determine how engaged or disengaged is the population. These are the 5 questions that we ask on the survey specifically to identify engagement. And as we can see here, we see all of these arrows that are pointing up on this slide. That indicates that each one of these items is, the score has increased from last year to this year. So overall, an upward trend in all 5 of these engagement specific items. Lots of favorable responses in these 5 items. So we see that in the middle here where we see the red, the yellow, and the green. The green indicates people who responded favorably with scores of agree or strongly agree to these survey items. The yellow.
Megan, excuse me, just hey, Anita, I think she's down on 42, page 42 now. She's like 6 or 7 pages down. Yeah.
Oh no, we were in the right place.
Well, the colors are blue, not red. They're green.
Oh,
on
I'm
the-
sorry. It's showing blue. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's showing more green on my screen, but I apologize.
I'm a thrill.
Yeah. No, it's kind of deep.
So the not red or yellow piece are the favorable responses. Then we have the neutral responses, and then the red are the folks who responded unfavorably, which is scores of strongly disagree or strong or disagree. So lots of favorable responses, positive movement in all of these items. So overall, really good scores when it comes to just general engagement. If we look at the next score, we'll see how that looks visually compared to our national benchmark. So we've got two horizontal lines on this chart. We've got the solid line for Bartlett Regional showing an increase from 2024 to 2025 from a score of 3.85 to a score of 3.92. And then the dotted line above that is the national benchmark trend. And we actually had a decrease in the national engagement score from a 3.99 to a 3.97. So it's really exciting to see an increase, especially in this year where we had overall nationally, a lot of organizations see a decrease in their overall engagement. All right, on our next slide, we will see the highest ranked items in the survey. So these are the items that have the highest percentile rank over in that right-hand column compared to our national healthcare benchmark. So these are the items that have really strong performance compared to our benchmark. And you can see here, satisfaction with benefits, not worrying about having enough money for expenses, feeling financially secure, and then items my pay is fair. It's not all the time that we get to see strong performance, especially on compensation items. So this is something that if you have focused on in the last year, this is something really to celebrate and recognize the work that's been done in these areas. And these are also opportunities that you could potentially consider using in your recruitment efforts to say, when you come to work here, these are some of the things that you're going to experience that you might not experience somewhere else because we are outperforming our peers by quite a bit in some of these areas. So lots of opportunities to celebrate, to recognize strength here. On the next slide, we have some of the lowest ranked items compared to that national benchmark. And a couple of these items have a lower rank compared to the benchmark and also are driving engagement for your population. So senior management providing a work climate that promotes patient safety. That's scoring fairly low compared to our benchmark, and it's a key driver of engagement. So that's one that we will visit again. Same thing for feeling like I can report patient safety mistakes without fear of punishment. So these are opportunities not just because they are lower as far as our benchmark ranking goes, but more specifically because they are things that are really driving someone's level of engagement or disengagement within the population. Yep. On the next slide, we get to see additional survey dimensions. So our primary outcome that we are looking at is engagement. We're looking at how engaged is the population, what is driving engagement, how can we improve engagement because of the correlation between employee engagement and things like safety, patient safety, productivity, absenteeism, all of the benefits that we get from an engaged population. But that's not the only thing that we measure in this survey. We also measure perceptions of safety culture, as we can see here. We measure resilience in a few different ways. We measure diversity, equity, and inclusion experiences and employee well-being. So we can see overall from a dimension perspective that there has been a lot of improvement across the board. And some of these areas we have had significant improvement. So underneath that bold safety culture grouping, we have a couple of areas, pride and reputation and resources and teamwork, where we have arrows that are not only pointing up, but they're pointing up and they're solidly filled in. That means that there has been a statistically significant improvement in those areas. So this really great work when it comes to safety culture and still opportunities for continuing to improve safety culture experiences. If you have questions about specifically what items there are within any of these dimensions, those are in the appendix that you have in your packet. All right, after that, we get into the leader index. And I mentioned this before because in a data set where there is a lot of improvement and a lot of scores that are moving up, this is an area where there have been decreases in these areas about the person I report to. Good communication, good feedback, respect, encouraging teamwork. These are areas where we still have strong, favorable responses, but we are slipping just a little bit. So this is an opportunity to look into how can we help to foster and build those strong connections and relationships between frontline managers and their direct reports. So this might be a good opportunity to communicate to all managers the fact that this is an opportunity for everyone, and to show kind of these specific points about communication, feedback, respect, and teamwork, and to just kind of talk a little bit about the impact that that can have on overall engagement. So not terrible scores right now, actually still fairly strong scores. All of these scores are at a 4.0 or above, which indicates agreement in these areas, but something for us to watch because we did have a decline in an area where most of the items are increasing.
Maybe can I ask a clarification question, please? Dr. Totten here. I'm wondering, just to clarify the leader index, is that specifically talking about middle managers and their perception of upper management? Or is that for frontline employees and their perception of their interactions with the middle managers or higher?
That's a great question. That is employees' perceptions of their direct manager. So it could be actually at any level, but just if I'm responding to the survey, I'm responding to the relationship with my direct manager. All right. So with this information, we want to take a look at the key drivers of engagement. I've mentioned a few times already the things that are driving engagement. So what does that mean? On this slide here where it says key drivers of engagement, what we do is we take all of the survey items and we run them through a statistical correlation analysis, lots of information that we don't need to know about how unless you're really into statistics. But what comes out for us is a list of the items that have the highest connection, the highest correlation to someone's engagement here at this organization. So with this list, we have the opportunity to have the biggest impact on engagement if we take action on these items. So when the question is, how do we continue to improve engagement? How do we continue to increase this score year over year? The first place that I recommend going to for the answer to that question is here, because these are the items that are impacting engagement. And these are in order of the strength of the correlation to engagement. So this top item, senior management provides a work climate that promotes patient safety. This was also a key driver of engagement last year. It has increased in score by 1/10 of a point, which is exactly what we want to see. And there are still opportunities for continued positive movement. People feeling like they can report patient safety mistakes without a fear of punishment. We'll notice that's not one of the lowest scores on here. And that's not the point of this list. It's not to point out the lowest scores. It's to point out the ones that, again, have the highest correlation to engagement. So this is not the lowest score, but it did have a decline. So it's an opportunity for us, again, to look into that patient safety. Bartlett conducts business in an ethical manner. That did have a significant improvement from last year, being a key driver of engagement last year and this year. So that is excellent to see such positive movement in that area. People feeling like they're treated with respect from the organization, confidence in senior management's leadership. I mentioned that the fact that this had such a significant increase, which we can see here, it had over 1/4 of a point of increase, which is excellent to see. And it is still an opportunity here, as it is for a lot of organizations. So taking into account these key drivers when you are considering where to take action, I think is our best place to start for continued improvement in engagement. So what's next? Now what? Some of the recommendations here around patient safety is just to continue to promote a culture of focus on patient safety, to kind of work to continuously define what high quality care looks like, what positive, good, strong service looks like. Rounding is always a great opportunity. Employee rounding is a good opportunity to hone in on safety experiences. And Miranda provided an excellent article here around the standard of trust in healthcare. That can be a good follow-up resource for us. As far as psychological safety to report errors, there's some recommendations here, both around looking into the systematic approach. Do people know how? Do people know what to do to report, and what do we do when we see those good behaviors around reporting? Are we recognizing, are we promoting those good behaviors when people report the things that they should be reporting, and what impact does that have on patient safety and on the organization? And then when it comes to perceptions of people feeling respected, there could be opportunities to find out from people, what does it look like for you to feel respected? This could be conversations that are had in one-on-ones. This could be, roundtable discussions. This could be something that you use, a crowdsourcing tool to find out from employees, what does respect look like for you, and how can we show you that you are respected as a member of the team? So lots of opportunities to not only find out more about respect, but also to model respect at every level of the organization. So not to say these are the things that we absolutely have to focus on, but some kind of thought starters for where can we take those next steps when it comes to this feedback. And I think Tracy might go ahead.
Yeah. So I was just going to build a little bit on what Megan is talking about, because there are some things that are coming up with safety in particular. We have a lot of different resources that are available to you now. And I can send this off to, it looks like Anita kind of arranged things. I can send them to her, and then she can maybe help to distribute. But we do have what's called our PG Connect, and it's available to all of our clients. There are different areas that you can, or different communities that you can become members of. One that is available to anyone is our Reliability Center of Excellence, and it's focused on safety and highly reliable behaviors and principles. And so you would have access to that, where there's opportunities to network, there's learning forums, there's blogs and white papers and things like that are available through that. We also just really recently, in the last couple of weeks, kicked off what we're calling our Zero Harm 24/7 initiative. Not so much a program, more of what's described as a movement and a way to change safety and the perceptions of safety within industry, and then also too within organizations. Some of the resources for that are available to everyone in that Reliability Center of Excellence. And then this one is actually, interestingly enough, very specific to board members and the CEO and CQO and CMO of organizations. And there's an opportunity for you to join to help us in learning and sharing and understanding culture of safety, what that means for your organization, what that means in the industry. So I'm happy to send that off, and we have some information on that movement, as we're calling it, and then also too a way that you can join. So I'm happy to send that off to you. It's a no cost opportunity. It's just something that we're doing for our clients. But I encourage you to have a look at that. And then just some other things that we could do when Megan was talking about the perception of respect, and not just for that necessarily, but for any of your key drivers. We do have a crowdsourcing tool. So if there's some interest in that, I'm happy to send information along with that. It gives employees a voice in terms of the solutions to some of the challenges that you're having. It gives them an opportunity to vote on different ideas, and then to come up with what's most feasible and what makes the most sense for you as an organization. So those are some of the things that we have. I do know too that the organization just recently joined our PSO, which is our patient safety organization. That's another opportunity to learn and to understand things like root cause analysis, to join with other clients and sharing the information about different safety incidents and learning from those. So a lot of good things happening there. And then one more thing I want to mention with Safety Week coming up in March. It's March 9th through the 13th. We have quite a few different things that we're going to be offering in terms of webinars. We have Dr. Tejal Gandhi, who's going to be presenting. She is our Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer. She'll be presenting on March 11th, and then we'll be having a follow-up webinar on the 12th. Also, we'll be having another one on the 26th. So we've got a big focus on safety next month in March, and excited if you would care to join us for some of those. So again, I will send off a lot of that information so that you have it. But any questions on any of those things or any thoughts on anything of interest?
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Several thoughts. I mean, my first, probably most important thought is this presentation really brings home the importance of the continuity of these surveys. The fact that the survey was done the same way 3 years in a row is so important. When I first got on the board, every year was just sort of a thing by itself. And so I'm glad to see that. And that's just so important for us to keep doing. As I went through this, I tried to answer my own mind. What's the measure on here where we would see that there's a meaningful indication of a problem? And I think probably the most important measurement here are these percentiles. And I thought to myself, well, what percentile is indicating problem? And that's something that you probably can't answer for us, but I think the board should have some discussion on that. And I just put my cards on the table. I think anything where the percentile is below 33%, we should take as an indication of a problem that needs to be addressed. And I'll just keep rambling here, but I would like you to comment.
Can we just focus, because that was my question too. Can we stick with that one just for a second?
Okay, let's do that.
So Anita, can you go down to 50, page 50 on the slides there? And it's the resilience and decompression, because I was kind of struck by how low it is, but how talking about the percentiles, it's the next one. And, there's improvement there, but geez, it seems awfully low. And compared to the national average, it would seem that, that to me speaks people that are potentially going to burn out. It would be really a kind of a focus area. And kind of in those long Al's comments, I'd like you to specifically speak to that as well, just how low it is ranked.
Yeah, you're right. The percentile ranks for decompression are fairly low here, but we do have positive movement, which is good. The other good news that we have is that the percentage of neutral responses here is fairly large, which indicates to me that we're not as close to burnout because people are just sort of neutral. They're neutral on these responses. So any support that can be provided as far as helping people to decompress from work, and that might look like, resources that HR might have to support disconnecting. That might look like, how do we model decompression at every level of the organization from the very top down, and show people that it is okay to step away and disconnect from work. We could look at this as the biggest opportunity to act, but I tend not to, only because looking at this compared to our national benchmark, there are things that are outside of our control, right? What the rest of the country is doing is outside of your control, and it might be moving up or down while you are improving. So it's not my favorite thing to look at as far as an indicator of what you all are doing. But it is an indicator that, yeah, there are people within the benchmark, significant amount of people in the benchmark when it comes to decompression who are doing better. And so there are opportunities here. That was me kind of rambling a little bit too, but primarily to say that I would still focus on the key drivers of engagement as far as what can we do to increase overall, because those engagement is the biggest indicator of not only people's experiences, but if they are going to stay within an organization. But yeah, there are opportunities here for sure.
if I may, one of the questions that was part of that though is what level of measuring something should we take as an indication of a real problem? And I had suggested these percentiles, probably the most important thing for us because they give us some comparison, Most of these are unitless numbers, on a 1 to 5 scale. So the only way that I know to use these numbers is to compare them to something. Become comparable when we look at them in these percentiles. So I threw out the idea that if this percentile is below 33%, in other words, 2/3 of the hospitals you're serving are doing better than we are, we should take that as a indication of a problem.
And this is kind of across the board, whether it's engagement or patient experience too, and Megan might have something else to say as well, but I think it's usually a good idea to kind of keep an eye on not only the percentile rank, right? That's kind of that pie in the sky, but also paying attention to your score and any incremental gains or losses that you have. Because if you're making those incremental gains, eventually you're going to catch up to the percentile rank, and it's going to get better if you're making improvements. If you're not focusing there and you're focusing too much on that percentile rank, which is harder to control because it's also that outside influence that's coming in. But paying attention a little bit as well to the things that you can make change with at the organization where you can see positive change, communicate that to your staff, and then also have that sort of longer stretch goal of improving the percentile rank. And I don't know if you necessarily agree with that completely, Megan, but I kind of like to look at both. I think they're both important.
Oh, if I could continue, I definitely agree. We need to be looking at these changes. These changes in the long term could be our most important indicator. But because we've only had 3 years of this executed in a consistent way, the change is there's not that many changes for us to look at. So I think we should probably be paying a little bit more attention to the percentiles because that gives us a valid comparison to something. And as time goes on, the change, year-to-year change would be even more important for us to look at. I agree. Then I have one other thought, unless you have some more comments on this idea of the 33rd percentile.
I think that would be a good line in the sand to start with, because we could choose anything below the 50th, which would be that would be at about the halfway point. But we do have, as we can see here, a good number of items that are significantly below the 50th. So going to the third, bottom third, middle third, top third, that could be a good line in the sand to see where are those opportunities when it comes to the external comparisons. Yeah.
Could we just have one more?
Oh, you want?
Yes, Gina.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments about the resiliency and decompression. I'm actually not as concerned about those as some of the others, because I think those might be more like symptoms of an underlying thing. And so when I see the safety culture, prevention and reporting, those are the things that give me the greatest pause. Because if somebody's going to have trouble leaving work behind or not sleeping or those kinds of things, it's probably because they're worried about the safety they left behind. So I think paying attention to those things, that if people are, and on the safety culture and prevention, the next page, all of those are lower. So they're all in decline. So to me, that's really where I would like to see attention paid.
Yeah. It is such a big factor too, when you think about patients and staff, safety is top of mind. And if you don't feel safe, whether you're a caregiver or a patient, it tends to undermine the entire experience and can impact that entire stay, clinical outcomes, experience. It really does. It does have a big impact. And so I agree that the safety piece is extremely important.
Well, and a lot of these items, specifically in this group of questions around prevention and reporting, have to do with that psychological safety. What happens when mistakes are made? What happens when things are reported? So yeah, I think this really connects well, not only with improving overall safety culture, but again, those things that are also connected pretty strongly to someone's engagement.
Lisa, I looked at this afternoon, for the meeting and I was, as far as the resilience piece of it, I mean, I know that in my own work, I mean, I'm on call a lot. I mean, you know, you're getting called about work and, you know, you deal with things that come up. So but as you said, I'm less concerned about that but I'm more concerned about the safety stuff because I'm on the quality committee. And to me, it's, you know, when we're looking at quality and how we're measuring what we do, I'm really concerned that staff don't feel safe reporting things because that also directly impacts quality. If people are worried about reporting something that happened or might happen, you know, we're doing quality measures and we're constantly looking at our quality, which then makes me wonder just how accurate those results are. Because if people aren't reporting things, then, you know, why aren't they reporting things? I mean, ultimately, what is the perception around that? I mean, are they feeling if they're going to be terminated, they're going to be disciplined? And so, you know, we hang our hat on the quality, but how accurate are those results if people aren't reporting things? Or are they just worried? I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me that we should be more, I think we should be really concerned about safety.
The other thing too that I meant to mention, and this is outside of engagement, it's on the patient experience side, but we're talking about as part of the zero harm movement is potentially adding a question on the patient experience surveys that asks patients, do you feel safe or did you feel safe during your hospital stay? So that could be another way to collect some additional data on that. So if that's something we can talk with the patient experience team to see if they'd like to do that to try to help with this piece.
And I think when it comes to these safety items, especially the ones that we see here on the screen, we've got a wealth of more detail in the online platform to drill into, are there specific units within the organization where this is a more severe problem than others? So we have the opportunity to look specifically at these particular questions by department or work unit and say, okay, are there areas where we need to go in and provide either some coaching or education to make sure that people know the process for reporting, or are there ways that we need to go in and find out, you know, do people have fear that they will get in trouble or get fired if they report something, and how can we find that out? So this is one of those places where I would turn to the online platform to find out more detail at the individual unit level to see if there are any hot spots to dig into first. And on the other hand, are there any units that are really performing well in these areas that you can learn some best practices from and maybe share throughout the organization?
Dr. Hernandez?
So one thing that I'm looking at this, you know, when you're combining the neutral and the favorable, I'm not on the form that shows how many answers there were, but it was about a 57% response, right? Like of 800. I'm assuming this employees. Okay, so, and this is employees, is this, contractors, like, I don't know like who it encompassed. But like looking at it, the organization makes every effort to deliver safe, error-free care to patients. I've got between neutral and favorable, 95% of that is either neutral or favorable. I think in drilling down and getting some more information for people, because like some people just never say like, what is the 3? Is it 3 favorable? Is it 3 neutral? Like, I don't know what those are. So I think maybe some more information would be helpful to really, before we sort of say, this is a terrible thing. I don't know that it's a terrible thing if I'm looking at both the combination of the neutral versus with the favorable. But I'm obviously not reading this all the time, so.
Yeah, there are, oh, go ahead.
You can please respond to that.
Yes, there are some fairly strong positive scores here. And that's, I don't want to sound too repetitive, but that's again why I strongly recommend a focus on those key drivers, because even if they are lower scores or not as low scores, if there's any opportunity here within those neutral items or even the unfavorable areas within an item, that's where the opportunity is, kind of overall that encompasses sort of everything.
Yeah, but last thing, I was, you brought up what I was gonna ask about. This seems like this is all begging for finer resolution. I mean, is this uniformly, these opinions uniformly throughout the hospital, or are there real clusters of places where there's problems? And you just mentioned something about the online platform. How does somebody get finer resolution? Obviously, you don't want to go all the way down to the individual. There must be some rules for a minimum response or something like that, but I would like to know how we would get fine resolution on some of these questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that there's a confidentiality threshold always in place of 5 people. So any unit or department that had at least 5, we can see how that unit itself responded, so we can find out where some of those hot spots are.
And I would, before we as a board get into the weeds, I would rely on our staff to take that look and report back to us if we believe that there are some hot spots and it's really up to senior leadership and the management team to come up with the framework on how to resolve some of these issues that are being reported by the staff. So. Yeah, sure. Mhm.
So as we saw these scores start to trickle in, we started seeing patterns in them. And so we've already taken steps to initiate changes to some of these areas. I can tell you, me and Chad have dug through the data. We know where the hotspots are. But we've initiated multiple A3s. So this is when we brought in leapfrog as a safety issue. There's a couple other ones that are reporting we're working on. So we're addressing the issues. I don't want to go over department specific issues before.
And if you look at our next item on the agenda, Chad is presenting, I'm guessing the first pass, the first A3 to come out of this. So before we take too deep a dive into this.
I did have one question about did you talk what the response rate trend has been over the last 3 years? Is the 53% that we had in this one, how was it first year and the second year?
It's gone up each year. The response rate has gone up each year. And it was 8% actual, but that translates to, I think we talked about 16.8% in actual number of people who responded higher. And then the one thing else I wanted to mention, which is, I don't think they alluded to it, which is the overall trend has been declining since we started this as well. So if you go back to the 23 and 24 surveys, 23 and 24, the national average for overall engagement has continued to decline while ours has continued to increase. And I really think when you look at the data, you can see where we've put a lot of effort in as an organization. Specifically, and I know we've kind of talked about this many times, but the leadership rounding is an area that we've really focused on, making sure that the team's out there and the cup of Joe with Joe. Those things are opportunities for people to sit down and have really pragmatic, thoughtful conversations with the leadership team and opportunities for the staff to develop a deeper level of trust. So I think where we're seeing big improvements is where we're putting our efforts in. So we just need to make sure that we're continually doing that in the not only just those key driver areas, because I agree with you guys. One of the A3s that we're going to be talking about is the burnout A3, because that does personally concern me. It concerns me, especially for the director level burnout and the qualitative feedback that we've gotten from staff.
I think this is a really impressive survey with the number of respondents. I think that says a lot for the hospital leadership for making that happen. This is such important information for keeping it a good working environment at our hospital, and it's really great to see this presented and talked about. I wonder if Press Ganey, if you have recommendations on what you would do for root cause analysis for finding out what some of the problem, what the underlying drivers of these responses are, if that's something that you have recommendations for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So within the platform, there is an action planning tool that has recommendations for not only the key drivers of engagement, but any of these items that the team wants to choose as focus items. There are also resources available for getting to like kind of the brainstorming process to find out, like you said, the root cause of some of these issues through various different methods. So those are some things that we can have either Miranda or Tracy send some of those resources kind of to dig into the why and the how behind the information.
Do you have any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
I already made this comment, but I want to make it again with emphasis. I'm just so glad to see this survey conducted this way. This is a huge improvement over what we were doing when I first got on the board.
Chris, you had a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Chad a question. The participants in this survey, it includes you know, the locums, right? The temporary staff, travelers, in addition to regular Bartlett staff, right?
It included staff, and I believe it included hospitalists again this year as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for, I'm not sure what time zone you're in, but it's got to be probably later than what we thought. We appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're happy to do it. Thank you. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Yeah. I echo Hal and the other folks' comments. This is a welcome survey to us, both because of the improvement, but also because of the clarity of the dashboard. So it's very readable and observable. So thank you very much. All right. Now that you're, you can go back to whatever you're doing in your life outside of work. So thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Great. Well, good news and things to opportunities to work on. So. And for the senior leadership team and all the folks that report to you that help with those improvements, thank you for that as well. Because it's hard to tell that we're over the last several years, particularly rolling out of COVID, that there was any kind of improvement being made. So thank you all. All right. Next item, A3 presentation.
So I don't know if you want to go back to Joe's memo to kick us off. But again, just the background, we've talked about A3s and kind of what they mean to us and our methodology for process improvement. But before we get started on this, I just really want to thank the board for, dare I say, their engagement with engagements. But I really appreciate how much you guys really truly care about the engagement of our employees. It really does mean a lot to me personally that the questions and that they're thoughtful, they're intuitive, and really are helping us hone in on the things that we need to make sure that we're focusing on as a leadership team and as an HR team. So I just want to thank you for that. Or if we can skip on to the A3. So what you're going to see is, and I hope I have to apologize. There's only two templates here of the three that we put together, and I apologize. So I'm going to talk about the two that are in here, then I'm going to talk about the one that's not. I agree that when I saw the burnout scores, it was something that was incredibly concerning. incredibly concerning. It's something that we have talked about. We've worked on over the last year. We didn't see as much of improvement as we were hoping for. And so what Joe had asked us to do was to put together a template for each department, so we could just really simplify the process for them, and that they could really take the ownership, because what's burnout in one department might be very different than burnout in another, right? So one burnout might be, like in HR, I take stuff home with me all the time, right? Like I'm thinking about different things, questions, problems, concerns. It might be very different than what someone takes home from them on the clinical side. So we really felt like we had an opportunity there to drive improvement by having these at the department level. And so again, I'm going to do this fairly quickly, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. But the problem statements are pretty much unanimous across the board. These are the reasons, the foundations for why we're adding this as an A3. The fact that we are addressing this at the department level, and then kind of what the background is. We did do some root cause analysis. We did some looking into it. Definitely there's some inadequate recovery and rest. The autonomy and control and role clarity and support seems to be one that bubbled up based on some of the qualitative information. And obviously the inability to disconnect has been a big one. So we left the goals empty. We left those available to each department to determine what works for them, as well as the KPI or countermeasures and KPIs, follow-up actions. So again, the goal was simply to identify the fact that we have agreed that this is an area that needs significant work. This is an area that we would like to see improvement in. And so each department has been asked to come up with 2 A3s of the 3. And so they get to choose between resilience. You can go to the next slide. The other one that, again, has been a concern for us and continues to be is the fact that the scores between the relationships within our own departments are very strong. Our scores there are very high. When it comes to the intra-departmental or inter-department relationships, those tend to be significantly lower. And we think that's an opportunity to improve patient safety and overall engagement. So again, similar setup where we have the problem statement, scope, and background, the root cause analysis, and then we left everything else available for the teams to go ahead and put in themselves. So that's the second one. The third one, which unfortunately I apologize, is not on here, but it has to do with patient safety, as you can imagine. So that was the third area, which we talked quite a bit about. And we have, again, done the same process. We've scoped everything out, put it into an easy digestible template for the departments to go in and really look at what it is that they can do at their department level to try to increase some of those things. So I know it's not like a fully fleshed out A3, but it's what it is it's the process that we're going to be using at the department level to address these 3 areas of what we consider pretty significant opportunities.
I'll say we did have immediate feedback from staff. I think Chad had a completed A3 back on his desk by the end of the day after we presented these.
Oh, really?
There's a
Yes.
big from the next level down and getting these done.
I was very impressed, and we're looking at possibly having that person participate next month. But yeah, within several hours of rolling these out with the management team meeting, I had someone on my desk with research and some things they could do to address burnout. And the beautiful part about that was this person took their individual expertise, their departmental expertise, and their historical knowledge from previous hospitals, and not only said, "Can I improve? I can not only just improve. I think I can help improve burnout within my department, but I think I can help at the higher level, organization wide." And I was really, really impressed with that individual, and I'm really looking forward to having this person come and talk to us hopefully in the next month or two, to see what they're doing at that department level. Because I really think it's been my experience that, you can drive things from HR. You can, and some people take them seriously and some people don't. But when they're driven from out of the departments, there is a level of ownership that is just deeper. And, this individual really exemplified that for me. And again, I'll be happy to share their name and stuff later, but I don't want to do it now in case they get speaks to comes to something different that's even more exciting. I don't know.
Any questions?
Yes.
Dr.
Forgive me if this is, I not seeing the safety one that's up there. Forgive me, it's just included in that. I'm just not appreciating it. But I'm pretty struck and concerned by the safety and culture, the safety prevention and reporting comment that the line item, I can report patient safety mistakes without fear of punishment, and 10% of respondents were said reported unfavorably to that. That's, I would interpret that potentially concerning that they fear retribution. And how is that covered by this A3 and if it's proposed? And if it's not, what are we hoping to do about that?
That would be that would be a level 2 A3 that would be handled at the Gale level, the Gale and Chad level. That would kind of oversee that particular piece because again, the thing I find out about the safety and reporting is I find this interesting juxtaposition when you look at the safety culture and teamwork and some of the scores there and some of the pride and reputation and how pretty significantly higher those scores are and that they're going up. But that there's definitely this emphasis on the reporting going down. So I found that to be a really interesting kind of thing to try to wrap my brain around. Like, what is the difference between we have this high degree of pride in culture and reputation, culture, pride, and reputation, but our reporting is dipping. But as you know, Dr. Hernandez pointed out, when you also combine the two things, you have 90% that feel, confident that when they report things that they're not going to be whatever. I can't remember the exact number on that one, but there is a fairly high number of folks that feel like they're not going to be have those issues as well. So the key for me is always how do you get the neutrals into the green and how do you get the reds into the neutral? Because you definitely don't take, more often than not, you don't take someone from the red to the green. You kind of slowly move them up that chain over the course of a year or two or through new experiences.
So we will see these, you're gonna bring these back to us once you get them more fleshed out, you get them some more detail.
You'll see some departmental ones as well as you'll see throughout the year. You'll see some of the level 2s. I believe we're doing it A3, I think every meeting or quarterly. Can't remember. Yes, every meeting. They'll be A3.
To follow up on what Dr. Cotton said that, 1 in 10, I mean, what's driving that? I mean, it's great that 90% are, feel safe, but if you got 10% that feel fearful for reporting patient safety items, I mean, maybe I don't want to make too much of it. I don't want to dive into a bunch of detail, but it does seem like there's a little bit of, further analysis that's warranted there.
Probably touch base on that.
Sure.
So there was a particular instance that took place at this, as we were doing the survey, that severely slanted a singular department across the board to the negative. And so when we carved that single department out, our overall scores actually went up. And so it went back to an incident that wasn't even involved patient care. And so we understand the issue, it's a hot button issue, and it's a specific department we're working with. But when we carved that out, but going back to Jody's question, we are working to adjust culture. So we want to encourage reporting. We will be working with med staff as well on some of these because physicians are engaged in this in some of the comments. So we'll be talking about this as well.
Thanks. I think. Jeannie,
No, Joe addressed mine. Okay, that's
and
great.
how you had your hand up?
That's exactly what I was, as I sat here and listened and I'm thinking, we're looking at these statistics that average over things. Is there some place, I was asking myself, is there some place? And yeah, I'm gonna ask a question about that. If she'll answer.
Right. I just had a quick question. You had mentioned that they have 3 options. They're to select, each department is to select one of the 2 of the 3. Okay. I must have. I wasn't sure I heard that correctly.
That's what we've asked them to do along with it, because each department has their own page for all sorts of process improvements. But for the engagement component, we really wanted them to focus on, to pick things and based on their individual departmental scores, some might have high reporting, safety reporting. And so they might say, okay, I want to focus on burnout because my staff's burned out or, the other pieces, the interdepartmental communication is not good. So we kind of allowed them that opportunity to focus based on their individual scores. And each, just to be also to be clear, each department director has the ability to access all of their scores. So they can see the drill through down to, and we can, again, as long as it's above 5, we can see, we have all sorts of demographic information in there. We can see things like, you know, she mentioned that the scores were up for newer hires. That's great. You know, I can talk about that because I know we've been doing employee satisfaction surveys after 2 weeks, 1 month, and 3 months. And we've been asking them how the process was, what we could improve. So you see those scores going up because of an improvement that we've made, you know, over this past year and a half to make sure that we're getting the data to make the improvements.
I did have another thought here. Would it be possible to go take the department in question out and report back to us with the percentiles of everybody else? The national, you know, compare the score without telling us what department it is, just take them out. If there's some area, and I think that's a legitimate analysis of the data, if there's some area that looks atypical, take it out, and then that would be useful. That would be comforting to me if the results were much more in line with the national.
We talk about patient safety specifically. Overall.
Just take that department or with that cluster of people, whatever that is, take them out and then show what everybody else looks like.
I'm not sure that that's possible for us to do.
I'd have to check with Press Ganey and see if that's possible. I just don't know off the top of my
Okay,
head.
all right, then that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's gonna give us really statistically relevant data, and I'd be a little hesitant. So that means what are we gonna do the next year? Then we go and look for a department that's skewed. I mean, I think there's always that possibility that we're gonna have skewed data because we're dealing with people. I think it's really clear about that.
the circumstance, as Joe mentioned, the circumstances were tiny. And I could change from department to department depending on what's going on. So I don't know if that's going to be statistically relevant. Dr. Hernandez.
So the question, and I just may not know this, so when you're developing these A3s and having different department heads kind of give you data and stuff like that, is there a way to show the board really cares and have transparency across and like make it sort of known to different staff? Like, hey, we are told that Bartlett only 68% of people feel that Bartlett treats employees with respect. I won't say that number, but like whatever, just sort of saying, we want to improve that. So like, we are all working together and like, we want to make a positive change. So where you're telling us monthly how we're doing stuff, can we pass that information to staff to say, how are we doing? Like, let's keep getting better. Like, this is where we're actively kind of, kind of letting people know. And I must be a half like full this kind of person, which I'm really not. But I didn't think it was that bad. And of course, I would be afraid to report a mistake that I made to anybody. Like 10% of people, like, absolutely. I mean, like, someone says to me, hey, Dorothy, I want to talk to you about something. I think I screwed up. Like, so to me, I'm thinking that's just like a natural response. But
But we are in the night.
Yeah. Well, about the point with that, I mean, I've been a nurse for a long time and everybody says, oh, there's no consequences to an error. And we always hear about somebody gets fired because of errors. So I think some people probably are fearful. And maybe there was, I don't know, maybe there was something that happened with error, the med error, 6 months ago that people got caught up in re-education and things like that. I mean, I know in my job that I'm responsible for monitoring all of that. And so if there's a certain percentage above of a med error, then I have to re-educate people and people are scared to death. They see me coming and they're running away from me. So I can kind of see where people have anxiety about errors. Whether it's true or not, it's perception. I didn't think the Press Ganey thing was that terrible. I mean, I actually, even though I'm concerned about safety, I kind of think it's kind of human nature. I mean, some people are more fearful of consequences of a mistake than other people are. I don't know.
I would love to see us become an organization where if people are involved in a situation where a mistake is made, that they feel that they could come forward with system solutions to prevent that from happening again. And maybe be involved in that change, having been people that were there and saw all of the individual elements that went into that mistake happening. And feel empowered to make the system better and see pride in the system improving as we learn from the mistakes. And I think it's not going to be possible for everything, but I think I would love for us to be an organization where that is a possibility.
But I think we're on,
Sorry, Sure, I'd just like to add to that. I think, it'd be helpful to re-educate staff on what a just culture is, because I agree, I've been a nurse since 2006. And, if there was times that I made a mistake, you have to look at, was it a process issue? Was it a person issue? What was involved in that? When I look at those scores, I can kind of think back into some situations where, there were some things that ended up in discipline, so to speak. Because when you look at the just culture, was it a threat, was it on purpose? Was it egregious? Like, there's all these different levels you can work through. But at times there is a moment where you do have to say, hey, this was not cool. And let's re-educate in what that looks like. And so that's always given in the opportunity, like maybe you should go and share with your teams, the organization I came from previously, anybody, example, made a med error and it was a significant one, then it was expected that they reported out and did a presentation at the next staff meeting that said, let's talk about this. Nobody had to know, but like, hey, we're going to present on, propofol this meeting, and this is the things you have to put for and make sure you have, 2 triple checks. So I think when I look at those scores, I understand like where they're coming from, but I think we also need to educate our staff in that, just because you were given a suspension or because you were given a write-up or a casting or whatever, that it was about the action, that could have caused patient harm, because there's some things that happen that you have to follow a patient to the end of their days, depending on what has happened. And so, I think that, to Jody's point, I think you can have both of those things. I think you can have an organization that understands just culture and understands that, oh man, yeah, that, I don't know what I wasn't thinking clear. I see I could have done this better. And then have them empower themselves to go back to the unit and re-educate on those things so other people don't make mistakes. And I frequently tell people they make the best educated, because if someone ever says they never made a med error or never, everybody's made a med error. And those are the best people that go back and say, let me tell you my experience and how to avoid that pitfall, because that shortcut led to this or whatever. And so I think you can have both an organization, one where you still have accountability, which is important, also aspect of patient safety, but also decide where they can be part of the solution of fixing a process or the issue that happened.
thank you for that. I'd like to loop this back to, taking advantage of and really looking at the strides that we've made forward on all of the issues, the engagement issues, safety issues, the quality issues through our A3 process. And we've already identified, before this presentation, we've identified a number of areas from which we know we need them. We may not have developed them yet, but I think we can rely on our staff, because it's all the way to the staff level, to bring those to. Now, when we solve everything immediately, it's, in any organization this size, it takes a lot that we don't want to add to the burnout by having so many A3s we need to prioritize. But I am pleased with and confident in the process of improvement. And it shows in the increases that we've made year over year. So I appreciate everybody, even though in some, we do have a 9% on there. That was a little shocking to me, but we don't know what the denominator is of that, and what we don't know if it were being compared to hospital systems or exactly what the underlying, what we're being compared to, so. More information is always better, but I would agree with Lisa that maybe we'll start hearing this, that it wasn't as, while I would want to see improvement on the percentiles, definitely. Just the fact that we're making improvements is, so. If there are there any other questions for Director Liz?
What I heard, he was like, no.
Okay. All right, we have talked a lot. Do you want to take a break? Do you want to, for a couple of minutes or press on? Okay. Now we're moving on to old business, hospital capacity.
Madam Chair, for January's numbers, we, for patient base, is at 69, med surg 487, MHU, 199. They have a current census of 9, OB 74, newborn nursery 55, the ED, saw 938 patients. We have a total of 7 patients waiting for placement. 4 of those are long-term care, 2 of those are SAR. There's no flu in-house as of this afternoon. I will report that we did implement kind of our code triage this afternoon or early this morning. The house is full on all of our units. There are some discharges, but very little. So just to remind the board that the code triage is kind of this collapse plan of what do we do if we don't have any beds. So currently we're at a status of where we're really monitoring any external transfers or patients that are coming in from other communities before we accept those to make sure we have beds for the, once we have beds open. So we'll re-report. I'll find out more information tomorrow, but the health supervisor is aware and bed staff was aware as well as the ER. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
How often does that happen?
Seems to wax and wane a little bit. We see it mostly during cruise season. We're having a little bit of a late uptick from what I expected from the fall, from like December, January timeframe. Like, usually we can see an uptick there. It's been hit or miss, but now we're pretty full. So it's pretty unusual for this time of the year. It came a little late, so. I would say maybe this is the second time we've done it since we implemented the policy, and the policy's been in effect not quite a year.
Any other questions? Give 1 minute. And seeing none, ready for that.
Heather, thank you.
Well, it's good to see you all again. To be back in town. I do go back to Michigan on Thursday, and so I know you're used to seeing Kim's face reporting these numbers, which I'm grateful for because it starts at 5 o'clock in Michigan. So I'm grateful that she takes that over for me. I believe you may have seen some or all of this last week, so I'll be brief. But our average daily census for home health in January was 18, with an average length of stay of 32. And then for hospice, our average daily census was 5. I do want to point out that we had our highest in 13 months length of stay for hospice of 128 days. So that is driven by 2 patients that we've got on service right now that have been on for about a year or just over a year. And so once those folks pass, I do anticipate it dropping again. In the meantime, while I'm here, I've been doing some outreach and an attempt to hopefully get some education out there about the importance of referring our patients sooner rather than later. I did meet with Foundation for End of Life Care a few times. I presented hospice at the Juneau Community Foundation Hope Endowment Listen and Learn. And I've met with Dr. Murray as well, who hopes to offer us some support and is more than excited to get out there and help with some physician education as well.
Putting you on the do not fly list with TSA.
Sure, this morning.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I got a horrible dog bite, so we'll see. See.
Chris, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to ask a question about that number, that 128. You seem like that was a good thing. What's national average, just so that we sort of have something to.
It's around 96 to 99 days is the national average. And so as you
Okay.
can see, if you look at this time last year, we were pretty abysmal. And again, it's really dependent on if you have one or two patients on for longer than a few months, it really, really drives that number very, very quickly. And again,
Okay.
we tend to have them in pairs. I don't know why it works out that way, but we get 2 or 3 on at the same time that tend to be our long dwellers. Which I really enjoy because we get to develop a really trusting rapport with them. And then that, kind of drives our bereavement program too. Those are the ones who really enjoy our bereavement services that we can stay and then help those people in the community as well. And so again, as soon as those 2 pass, I anticipate it kind of plummeting a little bit. But hopefully in the meantime, we can get some other referrals on for patients that have a longer anticipated expectancy.
Thank you.
No other questions? Thank you. Glad to see you again. Thank you.
I always appreciate the warm reception when I'm back.
Okay. Well, Dr. Ms. Carroll.
Good evening, everyone. So as anticipated, we did have a decline in our average daily census. It was 45.48 for January. So occupancy rate dipped to 72%. We have girls on the books. So our census date is 48, and we're expecting a few folks in the next couple of weeks. That will fill all of the beds that are not currently in construction.
Questions?
How are we doing on the construction? One of those beds gonna be back online.
Yeah, no, I did a walkthrough this week and, things are looking almost there. So I'm kind of doing the detail work now and, so we're getting there, hopefully sooner.
That's 6 beds then. Okay.
It's 8 beds,
Eight beds.
6 rooms, but 8 beds.
Got it.
Here's your survey window open, already sort of open.
February, April, beginning of this month, the last survey was.
Any other questions? Just if you have anything. Okay. Thank you for that. All right.
It's been a busy week. We too also attended the Juneau Community Foundation Listen and Learns, not just for hospice and home health, but also a couple others for the mental health, food, and homelessness. And it's, as Bruce, they do have a lot of money, but they are decreasing close to 500,000, I believe she said. And the city assembly or the city has asked what would happen if they decreased another 30%. Which came up mostly in the mental health and homelessness areas, because some of those programs could essentially go away. I think hospice seemed to be fairly safe for that 50 to 60,000 was kind of the number that they're kind of throwing out there. It could be more, it could be a little less, because they are seeing that need. I learned a lot, but they were some very long meetings. We participated as a co-sponsor this weekend for the Take a Time Out to Talk event. That was at GDHS, the basketball tournament, talking about mental health. We co-partnered with NAMI, Juneau Suicide Prevention and Find Your Fire, talking about 988, things like that. So we instituted the Employee Birthday Gift Card Initiative this last month in January, and providing gift cards to our Bartlett staff in the amount of $20 to the gift shop, which will hopefully help kind of reinvigorate the gift shop a little bit. I've gotten some really great responses from employees. Thank you so much. I'm so thankful that Bartlett cares, and I'll forward some of those on to Chad as well, just to see some of those. So some of the initial redemptions are already coming through. We're buying a lot of grilled chocolate. We're gonna get us those things. Apparently we can't go out, run out of those.
Spearfish Coffee continues to provide coffee staff. They have updated their hours and increased their hours until 2 p.m. It's mostly busy up and from about 6:30 until about 11 a.m. And then they see a little bit of a drop off, but they're going to try to stay open until 2 and see if they get that afternoon crowd. The Edelman Scholarship, Health Sciences Scholarship, academic, I said in my report, is open soon. It's actually open now. It was open as of last evening. Scholarship materials are posted on the foundation's website. The press release is going out, and the past recipients have been encouraged to reapply. Applications are due May 15th, 2026. The Gift from the Heart payroll contribution campaign. We have been doing very well with that. Currently contributions are over $710 per pay period, an increase from $480 with this early 2025. We started the new campaign, the spring campaign, about a week and a half ago. We've already had 3 more people sign up for payroll reduction. So that's great. We are losing 2 board members that are stepping down. The Ranger and Berkeley Rao will be stepping down. Berkeley is no longer in the LG Rayfield treasurer role. So I've asked Bob Rayfield to give us a number or a name of someone else that may be interested in filling that treasurer position. Hopefully someone under 40. It's hard to fill. Berkeley, I think, still fit that bill, but Bob's comment about the under 40, it is a little bit harder to get that. Let's see. The Bartlett Safe Sleep campaign. The board approved this last board member to approve $14,206 to provide the universal safe education and safe sleep baby boxes and books. And there's some information for playpens, sleep sacks, medication lock boxes, those kind of things. So we're helping with the Hello Baby funding that they have since kind of gone away. So we'll be instituting that. I'm meeting with Dr. Dressel and Hannah Parker this week to talk about the language that goes around that. I've been working with Aaron Carden to make sure that when we roll that out, what that looks like. So after my meeting with Dr. Dressel, then we'll have a little bit better refined verbiage for that. And last but not least, we found out about some de-escalation training that's coming. The Alaska Peace Officers Association is doing a de-escalation training the end of April. I believe it's April 28th. For partners that are interested, if there's people in ER or security or something like that, we might be able to help some funding for those people. I think that's it. Any questions? Any questions?
So Lorraine's gonna be kind of a hard one to replace too, right?
He gave me a couple of people's names.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing that I haven't heard back from any of the, but she just asked, she's in Australia for about a month. And she said that she's been spending about 6 months in Maricopa, but she just feels like there'd be a better option to fill that role. I haven't told her that she can be replaced yet, but we're looking. So we're looking for up to about 3 board members.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because Kenny's gone now too, right?
Getting up to you.
Yeah.
It's staff report. Business as usual.
Business as usual.
Is new issues, but I don't think for this part of the agenda. Okay. All right. And committee meeting updates.
Okay, so for the governance committee, we did have a productive meeting. But the important things that I was going to talk about for this meeting here tonight, and we put together a template for committee charters. Assume everybody in the board is on at least one committee, so you might want to look at that. But then, as we've already heard, there's still an opportunity to make some changes based on that meeting that Joe went to. But anyway, there's a template, and then there is the draft governance committee chart. The governance committee chart we put together tonight that we're gonna revise again possibly in April. So you can have a look at those, but there's nothing, we have an action item. Just to make-
Any questions? Planning committee. Chris, you
Yes, ma'am. So the planning committee met on February the 6th and we had a pretty good meeting. It was only 46 minutes long. The minutes accurately reflect kind of what happened during our committee meeting. I'd call your attention to one item related to the strategic plan. Our CEO, Joe, presented the plan, sort of accounting for some of the items that we discussed in both the strategic planning and some of the other discussions that we've had as a board. There is an action item associated with this. And I would say the planning committee is asking for board approval to accept the strategic plan as presented.
Is there any discussion? This is an action item that came out of committee, so doesn't require a motion, but now's your time to make comments. Seeing none, is there any objection to the action item? Seeing none, the item passes. Okay. Next, the joint board of directors and finance and audit committee meeting.
Well, I think the most important thing that came out of it was we approved our budget, and I think all the board members in this room were also at the meeting last week, so I'm not sure there's a lot I need to add to the meeting last week. Is there anything you want to touch on, Jeff? We do have a couple of kind of to-dos that, we're working, Angela and I are working on as far as, look at the budget monthly and some things like that, but I think.
And tomorrow night, we're having a conversation. With the assembly.
Yeah.
With regard to the budget, so. Tune in, or you're welcome to attend as well. Scheduled for 3.5 hours, don't know where. For only 2 entities.
Do you have any information about who's gonna go first?
It's in the airport.
Who's gonna go first? Okay, I didn't see that, so we don't have to worry about getting the front.
No.
And it's undetermined how long it will take. It's scheduled for 3.5 hours, but if all goes smoothly for us only the airport, it could be much less than that.
It starts at what time?
5:30.
5:30.
And the airport goes first. So the likelihood of us being up before 6 o'clock is remote.
We have some issues they're working on, so I would suspect it'll be at least an hour for the airport board.
Yeah. I would say so. It is. All right, so chambers.
There's a Zoom link too, right?
Yes, there is a Zoom link. Okay. There are no questions for Max. CEO, Ms. Water.
So in the letter for this month, there were several projects that I just did a quick update on, so I kind of changed my format to make everyone aware. So some of these are kind of issues that you've been in the hospital, you know about. So we did implement some additional security protocols for our staff in regards to SARE attendance. So when we hit the button, it sets off the alarm. We've had some learning, growing pains with these particular attendants. We've tweaked the process. And we're working on making that better. So the goal is that if the patient or the staff member is in a COVID-based situation, we're able to get assistance. We have staff doing this unintentionally. Those off and the alarms at the hospital. I think in the first day we had 5 or 6 go off. Sometimes like people will be going out and rubbing on their, cleaning off their car and setting it off out in the parking lot. So we're rolling out magnets. We've changed like response time. We're working out some protocols. So we're amending that process. We did go live with UKG payroll system, the first payroll in January. We've had some growing pains with this. I would say at the last payroll, we were 96.5% accurate in our payroll processes. We still have some issues we're working through. I know that the team is being diligent, and I have every confidence that we'll get those fixed. Some of it has to do with just the complexity with some of our union rules and how we go our payroll.
Any implementation is gonna be buggy.
Yeah.
Every payroll especially.
It's just more, people are more sensitive to this particular.
I get it.
If we talk about accuracy, if I've got EMR rollout, they're less concerned with 97%. We are well on our way in the nurse call system, our nurse call light system, with some upgrades to that. They will hopefully be done by the end of April. Taking down a handful of rooms at a time. I don't believe any are down at this point. The big news is rural health transformation. We did meet with, this has actually been probably a point of conversation and will continue to be a point of conversation for the next 5 to 6 years through this. The state did open up their portal for letters of intent. We have started submitting those. My plan is to bring back a short list to the planning committee, just so we can engage them. I'm not sure what the state's going to approve this first go around, so I'm just starting with the LOI. When they start saying yes for an application, I'll start bringing it back to the board, start working through some of these processes. Nothing we are submitting is going to be a surprise to the board. It's stuff that we've talked about, things we need to work on. EMRs, servers, technology upgrades, items of that nature. We're continuing to work on our communication. Some of the challenges we've had is, I think the busier senior leadership team gets with rural health transformation, a lot of our projects, our rounding kind of falls off. That's the first thing that goes. So we need to make sure we're getting our rounding done. Working on our communication, that's always something we have to make as key to how we process. The staff are informed, as well as providers. Deb did talk about the AHA conference we were able to attend. It was actually one of the better conferences you're able to go to. I had a great time. Me and Deb went through the CEO board chair. And that's something we'll chat about more as we move into it. I know Deb's going to talk on that, so still your show. But there's a lot of sustainability, partnerships, workforce, AI, rural health transformation, governance, a lot of the things we're dealing with today. So it's nice to make some connections and sit through some of these workshops. We have some stuff we're going to continue to work hard on that. But the big news is I hope to finalize the master facility plan sequencing tomorrow with Mark Coughlin. So I've had 2 meetings with him at this point. Tomorrow's our third. We're looking at finishing that up with the goal to bring that back to planning as well for consideration. And with the legislature being in session, Kim and I got to go down earlier this week or last week, I guess, at this point, and meet with Rep Story, I guess Rep Himshoot's aide, I guess. We got to meet with an aide, and then we also got to set with Senator Keel for a bit. It's kind of an interesting process. Not when they seem to have an agenda as you go into these meetings, but we're just trying to talk about Bartlett and what our needs were. I'm not particularly hopeful in that process, but I guess that can be with some people. We continue to work on the 83 process. You'll continue to see those roll out. I would say as we look through the data, we have been pointed in how we're trying to address some of these issues you see in the surveys that came out. I have every confidence that we as a team could see marked improvement in some of these areas. When you looked at the scores, and maybe it was the one I pointed out, 98% of our staff that filled out the score are either neutral or favorable that we provide quality healthcare at Bartlett. So only 2% fall out of that quality testing. And so to me, it's very positive. I think we've come a long way from where we were 2 years ago when we first started this. I know there's work ahead of us. We're up to the task. Yes, with that, any questions?
Yeah, it's, as you know, some employees contacted me about problems with the payroll. I wrote them back and said I talked to you, but I hadn't thought about it until now. If I wrote them back and say it's substantially approved, would they agree with that? Or?
It depends on the particular person, but I would say on the whole, they would agree with it. Yeah.
Well, no, as well.
Some of this communication, I was able to sit with a staff member and they're going over like their issues, and I just walked through it and it wasn't an issue. They just weren't reading the forms correct. So some of it's just the pay stubs look a little different. They're struggling to understand that. So I know we're working on this.
Well, I just wanted to be able to say,
Yeah.
talk to you, so check that out.
Touched on the facility plan and working with the contractor to bring that into planning.
Yeah.
And could you just fill that in a little bit more as far as, kind of what you're working on? Is it phasing? Is it?
It's phasing, so there's gonna be there is a first decision that the board needs to make. And so we'll bring back with that first decision, when we make that decision, what the subsequent decision could be. Or if we don't make that decision, other decision needs to take place. Because they all kind of stagger out differently. Does that make sense?
It does. It's a multi-year kind of a big process, and it's track. I guess what I'm not sure that we've settled on when we met at the airport is, kind of the process for evaluating that. I mean, I know we need to kind of walk through those, but it'd be nice if we had, I don't know if, tracking tool kind of comes to mind, some way to, here's the laundry list of the things that were mentioned in the facility plan that were options, and here's what we've prioritized and where that stands as far as bringing it to planning and finance. And it'd be helpful for me just so we don't lose kind of track of us, because, time will roll forward here,
Yeah, my plan was to try to lay it out in the Microsoft project, if you were familiar with that. So
Yeah.
it kind of lays out the different projects that potentially.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we could use that track. Be excellent. And the other kind of, it's something we can bring up, we don't need to get into it now, but the financial capacity around the numbers that we were hearing the other day. I mean, there are some huge numbers in there, and over time, and understanding what is realistic, and the financial analysis of what may make sense and what may not make sense, and understanding that is important. And maybe that's something we bring up in finance and, kind of talk about there. I don't know, but.
I understand, yeah. That's gonna be, the one decision is gonna be a much bigger conversation in and of itself.
Yeah.
I think there's some decisions that make sense that have a lower dollar threshold that are easier to make, but once you get to that big one,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a lot. Not only is the decision big, but how do we finance that particular decision?
Yeah, but even some of the smaller ones, there is a lot of zeros attached to that,
There is. Great. So we talk about that in cash flow and projections. I think you assumed you knew it would be a tough process.
It's gonna be a tough process for sure.
Yeah.
And at some point, you've got to kind of look, get bond counsel involved, just find out what we'd be looking at in terms of financing there, right?
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Oh, I can touch base. I did include the legislative priorities from AHA are included in here. There's a public document they put out. It's kind of handed out throughout the Capitol at this point. The one I'll know, and we're having I know they're having discussions about the nurse compact. And how it relates to the rural health transformation. This is something that administration put in that is tied to dollars in the future that they're working to get passed. I think from the conversation this morning, it looks like they have kind of a path forward that they need to negotiate. That's kind of the most important one to us. Is that modernizing healthcare licensing? That's the biggest one, from my point of view, the most important department at this point.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Fan, we've not with us tonight, so we won't have a liaison report. Mine is usually pretty short. I'm gonna talk a little bit more than I usually do. I mentioned earlier in the evening that, that we, yeah, Joe mentioned it as well, that the conference that we went to, in particular, the governance intensive for the CEO and board chair, was very helpful. Got a lot of good ideas out of it. I think I mentioned in one of our last couple of board meetings that with the support of senior leadership, I'd like to present and start working on an A3 for the board's piece in engagements, community engagements. For the next board meeting in March, we will have a proposed A3. I'll be reaching out to a couple of folks to talk about what that might look like for and without creating a public meeting by having more than 3 board members in a venue. So that's something that we're going to be talking about. But some great ideas were that you'll be hearing more about is improvements to our board orientation and education. I'm potentially going to bring forward an A3 on board orientation as well, and ongoing education, their recommendations. So we're a relatively small board. I don't think we want it to be really any bigger, but we all come to the board with different knowledge and skill sets. Those who have never been involved in healthcare have a steeper learning curve with regard to healthcare finance and quality and compliance. So we'd like to take potentially a quick assessment. It was their recommendation just to take a quick assessment of new board members to see what their gaps are, and in the orientation process, create a learning process for those folks. One of the we have implemented a board self-evaluation. They're recommending that it doesn't need to be annual; it could be biannually or triannually. So can come up with as we discussed earlier with the staff evaluation engagement survey, that we come up with a tool that is consistent and measurable moving forward for us. Their recommendations also is that we some of these things you'll hear about is job descriptions for the board, including the chair and the committee chairs. Something that I had not thought about before is we do have small committees, but and I know that we're looking into it to see if this is a possibility, but bringing non-board members to the committee structure that have specific skill sets that would be valuable to those committees. They would potentially be non-voting committee members, but would contribute to those committees, much as the liaisons do. I'm a non-voting liaison to the Credentials Committee and to the Tom Bartlett Foundation. So something that we might consider. Let's see, and I had not thought about this, but they recommended that we take a look at our quorum language specifically for significant decisions that we're making, decisions about when we select a new CEO leader.
When you fire the CEO.
The CEO. Also, when we're talking about bonding, are significant commitments, financial commitments to right now, the language is silent. Right now, it's structured so that we have to have a quorum. For a 9-member board, it's 5 members as a quorum. And a vote would constitute a yay vote or an approval vote would be a majority of that 5-member quorum, which means that 3 of the 9 board members could make a significant decision. It's our current structure is silent on anything, so we want to take a look at how we can strengthen our quorum language to make sure at least a majority of the board is voting on the or in order to pass something significant like Fireman Joe would take at least. You wrote it up. You did. Would a majority of the board would be needed to. So these are things that you might see moving forward in recommendations that came out of our governance intensive. There are other things that came out, but those are the ones that that we flagged as things for us to look at. Finally, the last thing that's didn't come out of the governance intensive, but something that we're looking at over time. We realized that there was some confusion about the approval process for credentialing. Our practice over time has been that the credentials committee liaison looks at every single folder that's being run through and signs, and then the secretary of the board looks at every single folder and signs. As it turns out, so through just as circumstances, that was not happening, and a decision was made that we only needed one signature. It turns out that on every file. Turns out that we could not find any evidence that it's a requirement for accreditation by CMS. There's nothing in that we could find in the credentials committee or the medical staff bylaws or our bylaws that says that we need to take a look at every single folder. It's basically our responsibility as a board is to approve the credentialing report. So what I think we need to take a look at is how we want to move forward. Do we want that reassurance that at least one person on the board is looking at and signing off on the files, or can we rely on the credentials committee liaison? I would not propose to do away with the credentials committee board liaison, just so that we know what's going on and can ask questions. But it's something that we're going to be talking about more, how we want to proceed with that.
Did you run that one past the attorneys?
Oh, that's
You're going to, you
That-
will be doing that, okay.
yeah, we're not making a unilateral step. What we're trying to do is figure out, because we can't, what our process going forward is, because we couldn't find anything that said that we needed to do any of that.
And my understanding is that as a tradition, it's unique to Bartlett, honestly. Of my experience with all the facilities I've worked with, Bartlett's the only one that has a board member that gets involved in that level of detail. So,
Yeah, because I'm wondering, I mean, I hadn't even thought about it before, but it seems like it's kind of going into operations and what is the professional background of that person to even evaluate the credentials. It seems like the work has been done. It's just basically, why would we do that? Yeah.
20 years at least, that that's been practice, and I think practice becomes ingrained, you know.
Well, that's what we found out.
Yeah.
So now we need to determine what we as a board and moving forward, it is a time suck for two board members to review every
It's not
single.
like one, but it's two. That's.
Yes. Every single.
Right, yeah.
Well, as one of the people who's had a lot of time sucked out of myself. I put that in one place, but then I've been here long enough. I've been here quite a while. As you know, I remember a couple of practitioners who I wonder, now, how did that work? How did they get credentialed? And the board, us, we are responsible. So I don't know that I want to just delegate that all to some committee and trust. There should be more than just, we just accept a motion to accept the credential. And so I want somebody on the board to have a little bit of an ear to what's going on there. I mean, it comes up from time to time that there's somebody who's had some past trouble with alcohol or drunk driving or something. And that's, if that's resolved, then fine. We want that person to be a provider. But the committee the credentialing committee will be different people at different times. And I don't think we should always remain curious about what's going on. And so I don't want to just abandon it.
And I don't disagree with this, should at least be a liaison that attends the meetings and asks questions and has the opportunity to look at who it is, but
During credentialing, at the credentialing meeting, right?
not the credentialing meeting.
Not file review. I think you're talking about file review, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking about
Yeah.
specifically file review. And that's unique here.
Yeah.
But having involvement at the credentialing committee, I absolutely agree with that for sure.
But we couldn't find any evidence that requires that, even that. I would be reluctant to do away with that as well. So,
Kenny agreed with you, by the way. I had a very specific conversation with Kenny about this when I first got on the board, and Kenny was of the opinion that there should be a review. Two board members that should be reviewed those files.
I don't know if I think there should be two or not, but I don't want to just take it on faith that it's good.
Is the liaison always the president of the board?
no, I just happened to roll into it, and Kenny took, so it's some circumstantial that it happened to be the last two presidents. It doesn't have to be me, the board president, but it just needs to be a lead from the board. And that is my report for today, probably the most I've said since many of you've been here. Anybody have any questions or comments for me?
I guess I'll just make a comment that I would support Al's idea. It's nice to have somebody on the board also reviewing some files, because it is a pretty small medical staff. It's a small facility, and I know that committee is very busy, and people on that committee are also very busy, and people are reviewing files, but there are judgment decisions being made, and I think it's good to have multiple sets of eyes on those judgment decisions. So I appreciate your time in reviewing files that I'm also reviewing. I think it's nice.
More to come on this topic.
If I could just touch on another thing you brought up, which is the non-board members of committees. And I've served on two boards that have utilized non-members on committees, and I've seen it not succeed and I've seen it succeed. And it's a hard structure to maintain, especially when you have turnover, because a lot of times the success is only as good as the person's really willing to devote their time And if there's not a requirement when you're not serving on the board, that's just something you have to really consider hard before we start going down that road.
And I know we didn't touch on this, but I also have concerns about confidentiality and, in the committee meetings and board members having access to certain information, especially in executive session or anything like that. These would be committees. I'm sorry?
All the committee meetings are public meetings.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, I know it's true, but it's.
And they're recorded.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking about influence and just, I don't know, I'm just thinking about who gets on them and what's.
This is, there were a lot of things that were discussed. I am not proposing that we implement any or all of these.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes.
That's something to talk about later.
Yeah,
It is. There's lots on here and there's no urgency because we've had none of these things. And and the same with the credentialing committee. We've operated the same way for a really long time. So these are just topics of discussion moving forward and more to come once we get more information.
I did hear asking the board members about kind of education and onboarding and something like that. And so was there a thought that that's going to happen?
Yes, that would be part of the if we're creating an A3, there'll be a proposal that a template, just as we saw a template for the employee satisfaction. It would be the same thing. There would be, here's the issue, and then potentially either a subgroup or somehow or another we would get board feedback on how we want to proceed. Also, I'm working on. Any other questions or comments for me? About anything we talked about? Okay. Word calendar. Right. Planning committee, Dr. Amsterdam back by. Yeah, he's back on the 28th. Okay. I think we had the committee, we discussed it for those two who were in attendance. Is that so good for the three folks? The 6th?
It's a different date.
Yeah, that works for me.
I'm gonna be out of town, but I think I can make it work remotely. Okay. And finance?
We're suggesting to move it to the 20th from the 13th.
And I believe that everybody agreed to that. Well, we just.
The two
of us. You two.
Yeah.
We have-
He's not here, so he doesn't get a say. So, yeah, it's gonna be- yeah, noon on the 20th, yeah. And Jeannie will at least be here. I'll be traveling, but
Yeah.
she can chair. the
You'll be
meeting.
you'll be here.
She can chair.
Okay.
I don't know if it's important on there. I will be out of town.
We'll survive, Jim.
Hey, guys.
It's on this.
Yes.
Yes.
That word here, yes.
Let me know.
It's fine. Okay, and quality complaints, are we still, for those who are,
As far as I know, I haven't talked to Gail, she's not here, so assuming.
back,
Well, yeah, I have concerns with her making that meeting, but. That's one issue, so it might be best to bump it, but I can coordinate with her if we have to do a scheduling meeting, I can certainly with you.
So at this point, we're moving the only change is moving from the finance and audit committee from the 13th to the 20th. That's an amendment to the calendar as presented. I would entertain a motion to approve the calendar as amended.
To approve the calendar as amended.
I'll take a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments or questions before we roll into executive session? Hearing none. We are, let's take a 10-minute break. Or as quick as we can, so we can get out of here. But let's, 7 minutes, okay, yes, let's take a break, and reconvene. For those, we are back in session. I'm going to entertain a motion to move into executive session.
I'm sure I move the Board of Directors of Bartlett Regional Hospital recess into executive session, discuss several matters, specifically those which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance are required to be confidential or involve consideration of records that are not subject to disclosure, specifically the credentialing report, medical staff meeting minutes, and legal updates.
Do you have a second for that? Thank you. Okay, I would, okay,
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the credentialing report.
the credentialing report has been accepted. If there's no other comments or questions from the board or senior leadership or anybody else?
See one comment.
Okay.
We are having an employee service award this Friday at I believe you're all been invited. So I encourage you to go see the team.
Starts at 5:30,
And that's, is it,
the museum,
yeah.
in the atrium, right?
Chris, where are you? It's still white where you are.
Anchorage.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you. So weird.